Dad Rock presents the Book of Boba Fett after show. This is Sean,
And this is Chris.
and tonight we are discussing episode 1 of the Book of Boba Fett entitled Stranger in a Strange Land. And if you haven't joined us before, we are Dad Rock. We do this kind of thing all the time where we talk about the latest pop culture obsessions, the biggest TV shows out there. We've done them for a lot of the Disney Plus content, including Mandalorian Season 2, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier. We've also done Ted Lasso and most recently Invasion on Apple TV Plus. Be sure to check us out each and every week. We'll be here. We haven't discussed it. I'm guessing, what do you think? Every Friday at 10
I think
p.m.?
we're going to be here Friday. Only reason we're doing it Thursday this week is because New Year's Eve is tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's just easier. But like you were saying, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that little bell. So if we do change our day just kind of because of happenstance, you'll get it when we when we go live.
Yeah, and we're an interactive show too. We are live, so be sure to comment. If you agree or disagree with something that we go over when we discuss the show. And Chris and I are big Star Wars fans, so we can go on tangents here about Star Wars stuff. So the show is fun, more fun when it's interactive. So be sure to check in with us.
There we go. So let's get started with it. Okay, so this has been anticipated for a while.
Oh yeah.
What was without getting too deep into it, your first thoughts on the show?
I was glued to the screen because, like you said, this story people have been waiting on since Return of the Jedi, pretty much since
Yeah.
1983, where Boba Fett was introduced in The Empire Strikes Back in '80, and like people were going crazy for him. He's been on lunchboxes and all kinds of merchandise ever since, and really he kind of went out like a punk in Return of the Jedi. And people have had this headcanon for decades now about him getting his way out of that Sarlacc, and for us to actually see it, it's canon, it's real, it's happening. That's kind of a big deal. But when I watched the episode, I was like, dang, that was short.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it felt short.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it felt short. But then again, there's a lot of things in it. I'm kind of like, okay, if this was episode 4, I would have felt like this would have been a filler episode.
Yeah.
It's almost like we got a filler episode in episode 1, which I don't know if they wanted to do some fan service and some explanations and some of those things. But that was really my first feeling of the show itself.
I'll be honest, as I was watching it, there were moments where it looked a little cheap. I
Yep,
don't know if cheap's the right word,
that's
but
exactly the right word.
it felt more like a TV show than The Mandalorian ever did. Like The Mandalorian felt big. Big action scenes. I'm just thinking of like, Din Djarin hanging off the side of the sandcrawler, and like there's just a lot more like bigger things.
Yeah.
And this one had like one kind of poorly choreographed fight scene between Fennec, Boba, and this group that attacked him.
I mean, across the board, I mean, it's okay for me. I'm gonna put it this way: it's Star Wars.
Right.
I love everything Star Wars, even
Yeah.
bad Star Wars for me.
That's pretty
It's
good.
still
Yeah.
good Star Wars for me.
Right.
But I've got issues, and I'm sad to say I've got issues. And hopefully those issues will resolve in episode 2 and 4, because I've got a feeling they were building, and the first episode was just a slow burn.
Yeah.
But like you said, there were some things in this episode where I felt like, terrible parkour was happening.
Right.
There was a monster in it, which we'll talk about later. It felt like something was out of like the '94 Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah, Goro.
It just, things didn't visually add up to what we were used to seeing in The Mandalorian and other projects. So
yeah,
I mean that were my first ones, but no, let's dive in. Let's have some fun with it. Hell, let's do it.
Let's start from the beginning. So that's where we start, right? This show opens up with just kind of some empty shots of Jabba's palace, which is a very familiar location in the Star Wars universe. We typically don't see it empty, so that was kind of jarring. Usually, we saw in Return of the Jedi.
It jarring?
Yeah. We saw it, and it was empty. But I guess this takes place pretty soon, or right after, within a few days, when we see that after credit scene for The Mandalorian season 2, where he comes in and he shoots Bib Fortuna dead and kind of takes over.
He had no chance. He didn't even know it was coming.
But it looks kind of short-staffed. That's another thing. Like, I thought maybe there'd be like more extras and more things popping, but is basically Boba and Fennec just sitting in this chair, waiting for people to come in one at a time.
Well, I feel like everyone jumped ship when Boba, not Boba, but
Yeah,
Jabba died.
yeah,
Everyone's like, "Oh, I'm not being held here against my will anymore. I'm
right,
gone."
yeah.
I mean, I feel like that was most of Jabba's, his entourage were more slaves than they were actual, willing, compatriots.
Yeah, and he goes. One of the first things he does is head to the Bacta tank, which at this point he's still got a lot of his scarring from his time in the Sarlacc pit. It seems like when you saw Tamora Morrison in Mandalorian, he looked bad. He looked rough. He had all these kind of scarring and scar tissue all around his head and his
Yeah.
face, and you could just assume that was from the Sarlacc pit. Um, but yeah, by the end of this episode, he looks pretty good. His skin's looking. He's cleared up. Bacta does
He's
magic.
clearing up, but I don't. I mean, we need to talk about the Bacta, but
Yeah.
right now we're not in a spot where I really want to dive into my thoughts about that. But yeah,
Yeah,
he's in it right now, and he's having these flashbacks. I mean, he goes
right.
back to Camino. I mean, you just see the city, and then
That
all of a
was
sudden,
cool.
yeah, seeing Camino back on the screen was awesome because
Right.
I think that was a very underutilized planet
Between the
by
Camino,
itself.
like, and it looked good too. So I don't know if it was a shot that just stole out of Attack of the Clones, but the shots of Camino, they looked great, as well as the shot of young Boba on the Geonosis battlefield picking up his dad's helmet.
Yeah.
That was great.
Well, I
The
mean, that
little
had to
flashback
obviously
scenes.
been used movie footage. So I'm gonna think they'd probably have done the exact same thing for Geonosis. Not
Yeah,
Geonosis. I'm
probably.
sorry. Camino.
Camino, yeah. And then the final flashback that he has is this is where we see in the flesh the Sarlacc pit. He's waking up. It's dark. It's slimy. It's gushing, and he essentially I think we're meant to think that maybe he's been knocked unconscious for an hour or two. It's pretty clear as far as the battle up top. You can tell that Luke, Leia, Han, they've already
They're all
hightailed it
gone.
out of there.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's waking up in the Sarlacc pit, and I I always expected this story to take a little bit more time as far as like seeing the whole machinations of him getting out. But really, he just kind of punches a hole through the side of it. He blows his flamethrower, and then he
Well,
punches
it's
his
after
way up
he
through the
took the
sand.
air from the other stormtrooper that was basically already decomposing. So he pulled, I guess, like
Right.
air line off him, took a deep breath, and started doing Boba Fett type things.
I guess I was surprised on how short it took. Like, we have been waiting for this moment for so long. I thought maybe they would kind of let it breathe a little bit more, but really, it's like a minute and a half.
It was
And
too much for me.
really,
Yeah, I mean, well, I've never been a Boba Fett guy. All
uh-oh,
cards on the table.
we're in trouble here. We got 6 episodes of this guy.
I wanted to see some of the other guys come forward. Like I want to see some of the other like bounty hunters.
Yeah.
I think like Black Sarnanthum. It's a Boba Fett, not Boba Fett, but it's a bounty hunter who is a Wookiee.
Oh,
I want
yeah,
to see
I know
some.
who you're talking about, yeah.
I want to see some of these other ones come forward,
And
like
Cad Bane,
actually
of
in
course.
live action, which would be freaking amazing.
Right.
Because he's actually worked with these people, so it would not be a stretch. And they would come and go from a planet like Tatooine without anyone's thought, because it's kind of one of the backwater planets that would
Right.
harbor people like them.
Yeah, I think that's a good reason for the show to exist. Basically, is that we have a chance to see a lot of this Star Wars underworld, a lot of the bounty hunters, a lot of the criminal syndicates come up in live action. A lot of characters that we've never seen in live action before. A lot of stuff from the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch. So that that's potentially it could be really cool. But even I mean, you're right. That might be another thing that I wanted to talk about too about Boba Fett. Um, we never really got a big characterization of him in the movies. Like he had a job, he had his bounty Han, and he didn't have a lot of dialogue. It's just like he's no good to me dead. And
Yeah,
that's about it. Like there wasn't a ton for him to do.
I don't understand how he got such a following. I really don't.
It had to be the look. I mean, just the look of Boba Fett was enough to carry him through at that point.
Yeah,
But since then, he's had a bunch of comics and stuff written about him where he's just like this ultimate badass. I never got like ultimate badass vibes from this episode.
oh
I mean,
no.
escaping the Sarlacc is kind of cool.
But then he got his
Taking down,
ass kicked over and over and over again in this episode.
yeah,
If it was from the Tusken Raiders, oh, the Tusken Child,
right,
if it was these parkour dudes that jumped out of nowhere,
right.
and I mean, if it wasn't for his buddies, the Gamorreans, they would have gotten their asses kicked there too. So it's like, I didn't get, big bad Boba like we got in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, he was definitely more of a badass in The Mandalorian, that's for sure. When he first appeared in the Tusken Raider garb with the gaffy stick, just like maybe just the way it was shot, maybe the choreography was a bit better, but it made Tamura Morrison look very capable. When this
Well,
show didn't really do him any favors.
there was one scene that kind of mirrored the Mandalorian scene. Is
Yeah,
when he had that shock stick above his head and he was coming down on that one guy and you seen it in his face.
right,
I mean, that was the only glimpse of like, okay, this is the badass
right.
that we wanted that we're not getting in this first episode.
Although I did like where he used that rocket to just basically blow one guy completely away. I mean, he was
Look,
gone.
a
That
little
guy
overkill,
disintegrated.
but yeah, a little overkill, but
Yeah,
we'll take it. Yeah, no, that was a pretty cool scene too. But I mean, as a whole, it's like, man, I was waiting for more of a "don't mess with me" vibe from him,
right. Yeah.
and people are like, "Psh, "Who are you? You're not even being
Yeah,
carried into town."
right. It is kind of surprising how we are Star Wars fans, so we know Boba Fett and we have this reverence around him, but it doesn't seem like Tatooine has any reverence for Boba Fett. They seem to not care very much.
Well, yeah, because you'd think since he was such a highly respected bounty hunter,
Yeah,
his name would be known throughout the galaxy. I mean,
but
he
he
really
seems to be
hasn't been gone for long.
no, he's being treated like he's just another cog in the wheel. Like, I don't know if maybe that has something to do with the way Bib Fortuna ran things, and he was just very like ineffective as a crime boss, and nobody really cares about this quote unquote crime syndicate anymore. Maybe it lost a lot of its luster and power since Jabba died.
Yeah.
Could be a reason. And maybe this show is the Boba Fett, cranking the heat up on that again.
But I mean, brings us right back to the scene when he's in the palace when he meets that the Mojo Dojo, Nojo Mojo.
Jojo Mojo, yeah. Was that the Powerpuff Girls villain? Major Domo.
Major Domo. That's it.
Domo
Yes.
arigato, Mr. Roboto. I know what you're talking about.
Well, he comes in there and come to find out he wants them to pay tribute to him or to the mayor.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, Fennec's like, I should you wouldn't talk to Jabba that way.
Yeah.
And he keeps on like apologies. And no apologies. And then Boba's like, let him live. Or what? No, off his ass.
Right.
Send a message,
Yeah.
kill him, and then they'll take you seriously. But he's like, he works for the mayor, so he wants to keep good ties with the mayor right now.
I guess I'm not quite sure where this attitude's coming from as far as like because this should be maybe it's his time with the Tusken Raiders. We get a bit of that. So maybe and I don't know, that's another question that I have. Like, are we going to keep going back to this flashback way of storytelling here? Or is this just like a one and done thing where it just shows that brief interlude how he got out of the Sarlacc and how we ended up meeting him in Mandalorian. We assume that he spent some time with the Tusken Raiders and learned their ways, and got healthy or whatever.
If they
Um,
continue with the flashback thing, eventually Din Djarin's going to come into it, and then how he met him, and how he got his armor back, and how
yeah,
Fennec became a part of the team.
yeah.
So I almost want him to stop. Like okay, so you gave us the explanation, you told us how he escaped, you told us uh, really how he survived on Tatooine. Because once I think he gets the respect of the Tusken Raiders, he's then kind of good there. So if he can survive with them, we don't need them to continue to tell us more.
I'm with you.
Backstory.
I can already assume at the end of this episode, he makes good with the Tusken Raiders. He's kind of in, we'll talk about it a little bit as far as how he gets into that tribe. And I can just take it from there as far as leaps in logic. Like, okay, as far as how this episode ends with the flashbacks to where we see him again in Mandalorian season 2, as far as the
Yeah.
timeline goes, I can make those assumptions with what happened to him. I don't need a ton of flashbacks.
Yeah, no, I was good. Yeah, I was good. I'm good at that point.
Yeah,
Let's move forward with the current timeline,
right.
and let's make good on badass Boba.
Yeah. Which I guess that's kind of the point though, because it's like we assume Boba Fett is this badass because this is what we've talked about as fans for decades. But it's like maybe is our interpretation or this characterization of Boba Fett has just been like wrong this whole time? Are they doing a little bit of revisionist history where they're actually, because this is the most we're going to have of Boba Fett. This 30-minute episode of Boba Fett is probably the most actual legit live action screen time that we've had of the character of Boba Fett, right?
Yeah,
Because and we honestly, watching this show, we think we know this character, but we don't really know this character. So maybe just our disconnect with like, well, he wasn't much of a badass or he was a little too nice. Maybe that's just who he is, and we just assumed these things all these years.
that's possible. But I think they're going to play into the assumptions. They're going to feed us
Yeah,
fanboys what we want,
right.
and just based on how we've seen him in the Mandalorian, tells everybody that what we're going to get,
I
and
will
pretty much
say,
is don't cross him.
right. I was just gonna say, like, as I think it'll be a bit of more interesting show if he's a bit more ruthless.
Yeah.
I think maybe he'll learn pretty quick that you can't be Mr. Nice Guy all the time here, running a crime syndicate.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you're still with us here, thanks for coming with us. Thanks for coming along the ride for us, here in the Book of Boba Fett after show. If you're new, please hit that likes button, that likes, that like button, the subscribe
All the
button, and that
likes.
and that little bell, and so you don't miss any of this. 6 weeks of the Boba Fett after show we have here,
Yeah.
and drop a comment, fully interactive. If you're not watching us live, put it down below. We respond to those as well. If you're watching live, let us know what we missed, and we'll go ahead and we'll address it live here on the show.
That's another question I had for you. I mean, mentioning the episode count here. So we've got 6 episodes. Do you think Disney Plus would have been in a better situation dropping the first 2 episodes with how short this first one felt? Do you think it would have been a good idea to drop the first two?
I'm of two minds of this. There's only 6.
Yeah.
So if they gave us 2 right out the gate, that's shortening the length of the actual draw that they're going to have to their platform. But based on what the episode was, it needed a second episode
Right.
because it gave us, like I said, it gave us the backstory. Now it needs to give us a little bit of the story going forward because he was brushed off by the toilet in the cantina.
Hmm.
He was brushed off by basically everybody, by the way I'm going to say it wrong, the major domo.
Yeah.
So everyone is basically just kind of throwing him aside. Even that droid that was in the palace was like, "You're not going to get no respect unless you torture somebody."
Right. Yeah.
So we need.
Which, which funny. He was the same tortured. He was in Return of the Jedi. He almost tortured R2D2.
So
uh,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna say yes. Just
yeah.
and it's gonna be to the detriment of the length of the running of the show,
Yeah.
seeing that the show was only got 6 episodes to it. But it either needed a longer first episode, or it needed to drop 2, or the second episode's got to be longer. The second episode can't be
Yes.
30 minutes. It's got to be 40 minutes, 45 minutes
Right.
to give us more time to get into the character, not more of a
Exactly.
backstory, because that's all we got.
Yeah. I feel that same way. Basically, this first episode for me, it gave me a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of fear that maybe this show is just kind of an afterthought, just a spin-off of The Mandalorian. And it's like if we literally only have 6 episodes of half hour each, that's 3 hours, total of 3 hours, which is kind of like a long movie, which is cool and all. But if as far as a weekly TV series, I'm just used to a little bit more than that, I guess.
Yeah, we
Between
were even
watching,
talking about that. It's like we've had these after shows,
yeah,
and we're not accustomed to having 30-minute shows anymore to talk about.
right,
We're accustomed to the 45 minute to the hour ones. We're like, man, we're trying to keep this under a certain times restraint, and
yeah,
it's impossible because of the length of the show.
yeah.
But yeah, I'll say it definitely needed 2 episodes this time around.
Yeah, that's the way I feel too,
But
for
let's
sure.
do this here. Let's talk about the Bacta tank.
Yeah,
So
okay, let's do it.
in the in the very beginning, he's in the Bacta tank.
Mhm.
He's recovering from whatever. He has these dreams. They're coming back. Apparently, they weren't there the whole time because he even talks to Fennec about it. He said, "You know what? The dreams are back." And she just brushes it off. You know what? Get your stuff together. We have people outside lined up to pay tribute to you. So
Yeah,
there was no. She didn't care one
yeah,
bit. It's like, suck it up, big boy. Let's go.
yeah.
But later on in the episode, the parkour dudes jump him, and they're taking a beating.
Mhm.
I mean, him and Fennec are. If it wasn't for the Gamorreans, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for those 2 guys that he saved to come on and help him out, that may have been show wrapped, game
Right.
over.
The,
It would.
Boba Fett goes out like a punk once again.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much it's what it was.
Yeah.
And after they get out of it. You've mentioned he smokes the guy on the They climb the building with a missile,
Yeah.
and they start fighting the whole thing. So it wasn't even a well choreographed fight scene from the
No.
beginning all the way to the fight on the roof with Finnick, in which she basically was told to bring him back alive. She shoves one guy off, and again, I'm assuming she brings the other one with him.
Yeah.
But we see Boba being drugged back to the palace by the Gamorreans and thrown back into this Bacta pit.
Right.
I don't think he's making it out of this season.
Oh, you think
Based
he's
on,
legit dying by the end
I
of the
think
show?
he's legit dying. I think the
Wow.
damage from the actual Sarlacc was enough that it was too much damage that an actual Bacta tank can actually heal. Because you see Bacta being used with Vader. When
Right.
Vader takes off his pressure suit and he's in the Bacta, it doesn't heal him because the damage is too wide. It's too much for him.
Yeah.
So the actual Bacta tank isn't so much healing him, but it's prolonging his life. So if something happened to the Bacta tank, we would then see the end of Boba Fett.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I always assumed that Darth Vader's Bacta tank dips were essentially, if he didn't do it because of his dark side usage, the dark side usage would just ravage him the rest of the way. Because that's, from my interpretation, using the dark side has been kind of detrimental to your own like physiology
Yeah.
almost. And that's what my assumption was. But yeah, you're right. Like by the time we see what's under Darth Vader's mask in Return of the Jedi, I mean, he doesn't look as bad as he did at the end of Revenge of the Sith, but he doesn't look great either.
Yeah, I think he uses it more of like a cathartic type
Yeah,
thing to get out of the suit. He's able to
right.
stay surviving in the Bacta, just
Yeah,
like he would be in the suit itself. So he won't die pretty much, minutes after being out of the suit. So that's kind of a, like a spa treatment for Vader.
like a nice,
Oh,
relaxing back to bath, light some candles.
maybe a bath bomb if he's lucky.
Yeah, read a magazine, drink some wine.
But
He's
yeah,
doing
I
good.
mean, we talked about that scene. This is the scene I'm talking about when he's drugged back into the palace itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they beat them down that bad. For him to be in that bad of shape, to be drugged back and put back in that's why I think it's suspect. I think that's why they showed the back to tank at the very beginning,
Yeah.
and then they showed it again at that point. I think there's no mistake to it. I think it's absolutely vital to the story of the Book of Boba Fett.
Do you think that he has some sort of a maybe like a sickness or an illness, and that's like deteriorating him, and maybe that like the Bacta is helping him, like you said before, like prolong his life?
It could be. I mean, it could be something he had prior to the Sarlacc that we never knew about.
Right.
But I personally believe it's something directly related to him being in the Sarlacc for whatever length of time he was.
Okay. Oh,
But
that's
I mean,
interesting.
I could be completely off base, but I don't think they do things on accident anymore in the Star Wars world. They'll show things with a specific purpose to them for either people like me and you to draw stories of our own and be completely
Right.
wrong,
Yeah.
or to actually have a plot point attached to them.
It was a strange beat for the Gamorreans to like drag him back in there and kind of dump him back in the Bacta tank when you're right, like that fight. I mean, he got hit on a little bit, but he looked pretty like he was kind of devastated. He looked in real bad shape when they dumped him in there the second time.
Like he wouldn't have made it back if it wasn't for
Right.
those two.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of these flashback. Let's just kind of clump all the flashback stuff together. So he, he gets captured by the Tusken Raiders. We see the Jawas steal his Boba Fett armor, his Mandalorian armor.
That was funny. I enjoyed that. As soon as I heard a Jawa, and I know when I seen the Sandcrawler coming in,
Yeah.
and then I heard the Jawa, I was like, oh, I know what's coming.
And they
And then
knock him the heck out, dude.
he grabbed for his one of their legs to pop. I'm like,
Yeah. Just a little
nice.
Jawa. Yeah. And knocked them out. And these Jawas are the same ones that you can assume that end up in the town that the one guy who ends up having the sheriff of that one small town that ends up having the Boba
Cobb
Fett armor.
Vanth.
Yeah, you assume that that's what transpired there. So he's just got, like, his underwear, basically. He's wearing his Mandalorian underwear, his underoos, right?
His long underwear.
Yeah, his Star Wars underoos.
Yeah.
He's out in the, Tatooine sun, the twin suns, just baking away. You'd imagine as long as he was exposed to the Tatooine suns that he is just like that's another thing. Not only did he crawl out of the Sarlacc with all the acid and stuff, but he was under the Tatooine sun for
Yeah, then he
who
was
knows how
pretty
long.
yeah. I would have been you would have been crispy as hell
Yeah, and the Tusken Raiders, they look the way they do to
to
stay
protect
alive
themselves. Yeah.
under the twin suns. So they're up at top of their banthas. They got him chained up. They bring him back,
Okay,
and
okay. Let's stop and talk about that for a second.
yeah,
This is one of the issues I had.
okay,
Dude couldn't even stand up to protect himself from a Jawa. What makes him think that he can walk behind a bantha for as long as he did
right.
before he fell and was drugged?
I don't know.
I
I
mean,
was
I was
just
like,
thinking when he was dragging like that I mean that sand's getting everywhere.
the Tatooine sand in places you never want to see it.
Yeah. It's coarse and rough.
Oh, good lord, beach scenes.
Yeah. That's all I was thinking about as he was getting dragged. But no, you're right. Like yeah, he couldn't even like and Jawas you imagine aren't that strong. So for him not to be even to bring down a Jawa, he was in not great shape. So yeah.
But yeah,
Um
I
go
said, but
ahead.
yeah, they get him back to camp and they just chain him up and drop him down. And this was another one of those little things. He's a big ass badass Boba. He's getting the crap kicked out of him by a bunch of children.
Yeah.
And the adults are just sitting back watching it, kind of smiling, like, okay, have fun with him. Beat him up.
Yeah. Well, you assume that the Tusken Raiders don't know who this guy is. I mean, maybe they know that face from being the clone troopers and stuff. But
Oh, I didn't
yeah,
even
you
think of
get the
that.
feeling they don't care. Like they don't care who this guy is. He's just one of their captives. They've got another Rhodian like Greedo, only orange. I don't know if I've ever seen an orange Rhodian before, but he does no favors. He almost like it seems like the Rhodian likes being captured.
Oh, yeah,
Like
he sounded the alarm.
yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. So I don't know what his deal was.
I think he was just scared. He was just scared. He knew he wasn't getting away. But
We
it was cool seeing those dogs.
yeah.
I,
We saw those
uh,
in Attack of the Clones, right?
yeah, and they were the what Anakin basically took down. When
Right.
he took down the whole tribe of Tusken Raiders, he was killing these dogs too.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see some of the callbacks, I guess you can say them to other movies
Yeah.
that they did in this first episode.
We learn a little bit more too about moisture farming and what that even looks like. Because we've just heard this term, like Uncle Owen and Emperor, they're moisture farmers. Like, what does that? What does that even mean? They're farming. I just assumed these big, towers that they had sitting near the Lars homestead were like collecting water from the air or whatever. But we find these like little like water balloons that they dig out of the sand that have water in them, like it's some kind of fruit or something that's in the actual earth.
Yeah.
And that was new. I don't remember seeing that in Star Wars ever before.
Oh yeah. Well, they were never told to dig.
Yeah,
Everyone's always trying to leave Tatooine. No one's ever
yeah,
really trying to stay. And now that we're dealing with people that are staying, we got to figure out how this life on Tatooine is actually sustainable.
yeah. That's true. Yeah, usually Tatooine is like a one and done. Like we got to get out of here
Yeah.
as soon as possible. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. And there are moments in this episode where Boba Fett is a true badass. I thought one of the moments was when he kind of used the animal's fangs to like, break apart the ropes that were tying him. He cut the rope against the animal's teeth. I thought that was kind of cool. That was like a little bit some initiative there. And then later in the episode, when this kid drags him out to do some digging and they get attacked by this
I
big
never got a name of it. I dug
I
and
don't
I
know.
dug and I dug, and so I was digging for water and I couldn't get any water.
I think it's a new creature.
It was a terrible,
You did not
terrible
like the look of this thing, huh?
looking creature. I mean, when he was like I already referenced the original Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't good CGI. I mean,
No.
the whole thing was just it was CW.
So like I know what they were going for. It looked very much like an old school stop motion animation, Ray Harryhausen, like Jason and the Argonauts, like cinema from way back when. Like I know what the look they were going for, and I just don't think it fits with. It doesn't look like any other Tatooine creature we've ever seen before.
The first thing I thought when I seen the claw, and I gasped. I was like, "This is gonna be badass if it's what I thought it was." I thought it was gonna be a crate dragon.
I was thinking that too. When you first see like the spine and the
Yeah,
arm and
because
stuff, I
that's
was like,
something that the Tusken Raiders are completely fearful of.
yeah,
So if they would have ran into that out there, that would have been awesome. What we got was semi okay.
we have no idea what we got. We got some kind of weird special effect and
And then he was
six-armed Goro
choked out like
creature.
Boba was. Not Boba, like Jabba was, with
Yeah.
a chain over his neck. And I mean, I don't know how they got the head off because I didn't see a sword. I seen maybe a knife the little guy was
I was
carrying.
wondering that myself. Like he had a little wooden gaffy stick and they had the chain. How the heck? Kind of like Clark Griswold with the Christmas tree there
I
when they
love the
finally dig
reference.
it
That's
out.
awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of a wonder. But so yeah, they do get the head off and they go back to the tribe, which the tribe leader knew right away that it wasn't the little kid that did
Oh
that.
yeah, no, and Boba let him do it. He
Yeah.
just walked up and let the kid run into the
Take
town
credit.
and show it and basically say how he did it was just based on what Boba did.
Yeah.
And Boba's just standing there with chains in hand. And then that leader guy walks over and hands him some water.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're one of us, one of us.
Exactly. Yeah. You can take a seat by the fire here, basically. He's
But
one of them, yeah.
let's see a little bit of that scene we're speaking of here.
So that's where they leave it as far as him and the Tusken Raiders. Like we said before, I hope that's actually where they leave it entirely. We can all make the conclusion as far as what happened next, how Boba Fett pulled himself up and became badass again, like how we saw him in The Mandalorian when he came back. I hope that's it, and I hope episode 2 they really get to the nitty gritty of what's going on here in Tatooine and the power struggle there.
But I don't want it to be the end of the Tusken Raiders.
Right,
I,
I
th-
don't either.
that's a whole nother group of people that I want to learn a lot more from.
Yeah,
And if he is actually in that good with him, they could kind of be his muscle.
his
If you
eyes, ears, they could be,
exactly.
he could offer them, like, protection because he's probably gonna have if he didn't have that relationship with the Tusken Raiders before, he definitely has that kinda relationship with the Tusken Raiders now. They
Yeah.
basically saved him, they saved his life, and he's only walking around because of them, and, yeah, I believe that too, like, I wanna see him using this newfound power as taking his chances to protect Tusken Raiders. I
Because they're
that would
not
be cool.
exactly weak at all. So if you
No.
have strength with strength, you're running Tatooine
Yeah.
from basically the whole planet itself. You're not just stuck in Mos Espa. You
Yeah.
got, I'm blanking on this other city.
There's Mos Eisley, Mos
Isley,
Espa.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're running all the big ports. And
Yeah.
then if all these other like crime lords and lackeys are coming in there, they got to pay respects to the two of you who are
Right.
running this side by side because you can't run deep in the desert where they can run. They can
Yeah.
control that area. You can control the cities,
Right.
and you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We're both going to be fine here.
Yeah, exactly. And the Tusken Raiders have such a mystique in the Star Wars universe already. Like,
Mhm.
if you're on Tatooine and if you're not within a city, then you need to watch out for the Tusken Raiders because they're like it went a long way in The Mandalorian when Din Djarin was able to actually speak their language and talk to them and treat them
Yeah,
as people and not just as like, these terrifying beings that you got to avoid. Like Din Djarin was actually able to communicate with them, which was like a way for us to be super impressed with Din Djarin like immediately. Like, oh
yeah,
wow, he actually talks to these guys.
yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, there was a respect he gave them
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
And when he did that, the brashness from them fell away real quick.
Yeah.
He was able to sit around the fire and talk to him and everything. So if Boba can actually do the same thing,
Yeah.
which I think I am more confident in Boba doing it than I was with Din,
Oh,
because we
sure.
see that there is a history between these two now.
Yeah, he was actually like it seems like he was actually accepted into one of their tribes, so
Yeah.
that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so I hope we're not done with them. I hope they continue because I think they're very underutilized, even though
Yeah,
they've been a pivotal portion of Star Wars.
since '77.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I mean, even they're the ones who Anakin went and took care of.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
one of those tribes. I
He
mean,
was a big
they've
step in Anakin's steps towards, yeah, the dark side, like, it
yeah,
was the
so
first time he unleashed.
they've always been there. So if they
Yeah,
give us a little bit more of them, not too much, it's the Book of Boba Fett, but
right,
give them enough of a character role in this to build their aura up. 'Cause they're not even really big in any of the actual books or comics or anything.
right,
They're
they're very mysterious.
they're basically built in fandom, kind of like how Boba was in
Yeah,
reality.
yeah. So you're right. I agree with you 100%. I hope we get more of the Tusken Raiders in this show, but not necessarily just more of these flashbacks. Like I get what the relationship is there between
Yeah.
Boba and these guys. But yeah, and continue. I want to continue. I want to see more of Fennec. I want to see Fennec be cool and badass. Like we've actually seen Fennec in animation form, and that, that's not quite fair because in animation you can be, jump, 12 feet in the air and be like do these crazy things because it's a cartoon, it's animation. But we saw that character be a complete badass in the Bad Batch. Like she was like one you don't want to mess with,
Well, she
and
took what's it took his was that
Omega.
about
Oh, Cad Bane.
her and Cad Bane went toe to toe.
Yeah,
And I hold Cad Bane in high regard.
yeah,
Like I honestly I would take a book of Cad Bane
right.
over Boba Fett. And that's me. I know I'm not exactly in the minority. I'm yeah.
Do you think we'll see Cad Bane in this show? If we're gonna see Cad Bane in any show,
Dude, if he showed up live action, I may crap my pants. That would be so badass if he
would you
showed
be
up.
completely back on board with the Book of Boba Fett if you see Cad Bane?
Oh, if he walks into the palace,
Yeah.
oh dude, that would put me on a whole nother level with this show. And not only walked into the palace and talked to him,
Right.
but gave him no respect.
Sure.
None
Yeah.
whatsoever. Like, you know what? You are me. There's no difference here. I broke into the Senate. I held senators captive. I escaped. I'm telling you about it. What have you done? You got knocked into a Sarlacc pit. You
Let me
know,
ask you this. So far we've seen a very important flashback with him crawling his way out of the Sarlacc, something we've all the fandoms wanted to see for years and years. Do you think maybe we'll get more of these flashbacks, but not necessary from that time period? Maybe we get a flashback where we see how he gets the dent in the helmet, which before it was supposed to be a scene in the Clone Wars where Cad Bane did that. Do you think we'll get little bits and pieces of like how he becomes that character that we know from the original trilogy?
I don't want it.
You don't want any of that?
I don't want any of that. I want, like we were saying before, I want going forward.
Yeah, no more
Now,
flashbacks.
if these characters and these interaction with these relationships he had in the past move forward into this, I
Yeah,
would rather them do that
yeah,
because then they're trying to do too much. Like, don't try to force Cad Bane as much as I would love him to be in it because like I said, I would drop a load if he walked in,
yeah,
but don't force him in the show. Give him an actual purpose of being there. Because
right.
is he a part of the guild?
Yeah.
I mean, we may see some of these. What's his name from the Mandalorian? The dude that ran the guild. Man, I'm blanking on his name.
Oh,
I'm gonna.
Grief Karga?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't we see Grief Karga at least in a
true.
hologram?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
that would be cool.
there's all those
Yeah.
connections that they can do. But yeah, if they were able to do that, I'll give us all the flashbacks.
Christopher says, "Give us all the flashbacks."
Oh no.
I'm wondering myself because I think it would be a weird thing for the flashbacks to be such a pivotal part of this particular episode. You open up with episode 1 where half the story that's being told is all flashback,
But
and
do
for
you
them
really
to
want
not
the
do any
yearbook of
flashbacks
Boba
going.
Fett rather than the going forward Boba Fett?
I don't know what I want, honestly, but if you have something called the Book of Boba Fett, I think there's a high chance we see a lot of past
So you
Boba
think
Fett
we're gonna get an
stories.
epilogue to this book?
I think, yeah, yeah, prologue and epilogue, a bunch of backstory. This could be like the group of like the comic books had a bunch of one shots where it's just like one story of how this happened. And because honestly, you're not going to get any. This is it as far as a Boba Fett show. I think they're never gonna recast and have a different actor play it,
No.
you know what I mean? This is it, and Tamura Morrison is getting up there in age. It's not like 10 years from now, you're gonna have a second bite of the apple at this.
But on the flip side of that here, keeping him as the crime lord and him staying in the palace and then changing his mentality from I'm walking everywhere to letting them carry him,
Yeah,
that could prolong this show. If he becomes really hardened and lets Finnick, off people when they're not paying attention, when they're not
right.
paying respects, if
Yeah,
he uses the Tusken Raiders as his muscle,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. He doesn't have to be out there swinging the gaffy stick or, shooting missiles. He could be the face of the show and he can be your crime lord without needing to pull any of that actually off anymore.
yeah, so, I mean, there's no question that you and I are in for this, the remaining 5 episodes. You and I can't wait to see what they do here. We're gonna be checking out each and every week. We're gonna be back here each and every Friday night at 10 p.m. to talk about the weekly episodes here. To me, I think you and I are both of the same opinion that this wasn't the greatest premiere episode of the Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett. And we've already discussed the reasons why, but it has a ton of potential as far as where this can go from here, the next 5 episodes, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah,
I need more. I
right.
need I need give me some more. Can I have some more, please? You know. But yeah, I mean, what you said we're doing this we're gonna say Friday nights.
Yeah, every
Eh,
Friday at 10 p.m., join us here live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook as we discuss the Book of Boba Fett. And we are a live and interactive show, so please do comment. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And until next time, I guess we'll see you next week.
Okay, keep it cheesy.
See ya.